hypothyroids and the thyroids. The thyroids are in the neck, 4 parathyroids, small. The parathyroids are located on the 4 lobes of the thyroid. Of course, the center of the universe, especially as far as stress reaction is concerned, the adrenal glands, especially the adrenal cortex. From the pancreas has a huge component of exocrine pancreas, which plays a role in the GI system, in the digestive system. But about 10% of these systems are the so-called endocrine pancreas, which produce which hormone, just by, I'm sure you know something. What comes from the pancreas? Insulin and what else? Insulin decreases, glucose and another hormone elevates. Glucagon, exactly, these are the two. There are other somatostatin also, but these are the two. So this is endocrine pancreas. Only 10%, but that's the main reason for the diabetes mellitus if you don't have enough insulin, or our system does not respond to insulin. So these are hormones which are similar to the neurotransmitter, except these are secreted into the blood. And since the close connection, especially because the hypothalamus regulating the pituitary gland, it's often called neuroendocrine system. Now, we don't have time to go over the milestones of the endocrine system. I just want to highlight a few major events. It was not only first known by the Chinese who used isolated sex gland and pituitary hormones for medical purposes, and the Greeks, to the marathon runners, was well known for them. They extracted from the testicles of animals. In medieval time, Avicenna wrote some textbooks on this, on special diabetes mellitus. And another important person is Graves, Dr. Graves, who discovered the well-known bulging eyes in the thyroid diseases, which we will cover tomorrow. Oskar Minkowski was the first who removed the pancreas and realized that blood sugar will go up and the patient and such animals will die. Otto Levy discovered the first neurohormones, but mostly related to the Minkowski work is the chairman of the physiology department at University of Toronto, and Charles Best was his medical student who discovered insulin during one summer rotation. So that's the reason we encourage not only the medical students, but pharmacy students, try to do research project. Unfortunately, here we do not have a lot of facilities, but the University of Toronto was well equipped, and Charles Best isolated insulin from the endocrine pancreas during one summer project. Cushing, he was a neurosurgeon at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, where I spent most of my residency, of course. And because he discovered the pituitary hormone, pituitary tumor, which secretes excessive ACTH, this disease is called Cushing disease. Cushing syndrome is different. I'm paying an extra few minutes, seconds to this. Don't mix up the two things. These will be on quizzes and exams. Cushing disease means the reason for excessive glucocorticoids, ACTH, is in the brain. It's a small, tiny tumor in the pituitary. That's Cushing disease. Cushing syndrome, every other elevated level of glucocorticoids. So, for example, if you treat rheumatoid arthritis or osteoarthritis with excessive glucocorticoids, they might cause some side effects. And nowadays, of course, people are still use glucocorticoids to stress IBD, especially ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And those are all Cushing syndrome. Anseli was my teacher. Anseli discovered stress. You will see in a minute in the original papers. It published in 1936. He had 40 PhD student. I was his 39th student. I got my PhD in University of Montreal in 73. Nobody knew how many students started with Hans Selye. He was a very demanding German professor. We only know that 40 finished. One of them got Nobel Prize, Roger Gilman, for the isolating one of the pituitary hormones, actually hypothalamic hormones. Roger Gilman was the only Nobel Prize winner for that. So this is a very brief history for the story, and just a short legacy to Hans Selye, who died in 1985 at age 75. He described the pituitary hormones and the stress concept, and on the 75-year anniversary of his famous publication in Nature, his last 3 PhD students wrote a scientific article, review article, which is the best article, web publication by me. More people read this than some original papers. I was at 39, she was Iveta, she was now the UCLA, was the 40th, and Arpad Shomoli was before me at the 38. All students of Hans Selye, and this is Iveta Shea, and this is me when I had a little bit more here. Unfortunately, if you want to check anything, you're welcome to read the article. It's a very good history. And it was so well published that I got a special award for Research Gate, which monitors all the publications. So let's go to the main events for the endocrine glands. Obviously, basically the products which can go into body cavities, and especially in the blood. Neurotransmission is local, and these hormones diffuse to the body and they affect virtually every function in our body. And the glands which we are covering in this course is the pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal cortex, pineal glands which can influence in the pituitary also, and the pancreatic islet, the endocrine pancreas. So we don't ignore testes and ovary, we just don't cover it in this course. So here is just a clarification for the secretory regulatory functions in our body. Most of you heard about the neurotransmitters. These are, of course, direct transfer from one cell to the other. This is endocrine. The cells that are paracrine, secretion, and others are affecting cells to cell directly. But the endocrine, the products are related to the blood circulation and affecting the target which have a very distance. And the neurotransmission are transferred to synapses that close without you don't need any hormonal transaction or blood flow. And the autocrine is a very simple regulation of cells itself as an autocrine regulatory mechanism. But the endocrine is the main messages that are released into the body. The main functions are not going to read on this because this is self-evident, that just reinforces what I was saying, that affect all our functions, and these are the main players in all the stress reactions. How big the endocrine glands? Incredibly small, very small but very powerful. For example, pituitary is the size of a pea, half a gram. It's incredibly small. The adrenal glands are at the top of the kidney on both sides, and usually about 5 grams. Yellow thyroids are in the neck, and these small glands at the top, here bottom, are the parathyroids. It's very difficult to remove them during surgery. And the pancreas is mostly digestive organ, and the endocrine pancreas is just a tiny small element, so-called diffuse islands. The endocrines are regulated by mostly by the master gland pituitary gland and the forward-looking part, the anterior part, and the back of the pituitary gland. So they regulate adrenals, thyroid, and stasis and ovaries, which we are not covering in this course. The pituitary, the posterior part, affects the antidiuretic hormone oxytocin. So pay attention to this. Actually, we should have put an asterisk that the pituitary regulates most of the endocrine glands, but not all. So what is missing from this list? From endocrine glands? What is pituitary not regulated? Amy? What's missing here? Pituitary regulates these glands. Doesn't regulate parathyroid. Parathyroids are independent of the pituitary. The master glands regulates only adrenals, thyroids, testes, and ovaries. So parathyroids and which?
The first one?
Which one?
And parathyroid the second one.
Parathyroids are just how big they are.
Yeah.
But the regulation of the endocrine gland. The anterior pituitary regulates these. So we are asking the master gland, this tiny pituitary, regulates the adrenals, thyroid, testes, and ovaries in another topic. And the posterior pituitary, the antidiuretic hormone, oxytocin. Parathyroids are listed here just for size, but they are independent of the pituitary. And that's very important because that will be the question when I go not only here but on both also. So what else is missing from the pituitary regulation? What is involved in the diabetes mellitus? Pancreas, endocrine pancreas. So these are the two independent glands. The parathyroids are not regulated by pituitary, and the endocrine pancreas is not regulated. So two independent organs. Of course, they have their own feedback, but they are not regulated by the pituitary. So here is the summary. The anterior pituitary regulates the adrenal cortex, not the medulla, but the cortex, the thyroid, ovaries, and testes. Independent of the pituitary are the parathyroid glands, endocrine pancreas, and the diffuse endocrine system integrata, especially the GI tract, which we are not covering. So these are the parathyroids and endocrine pancreas are independent of the pituitary, but because of the negative feedback regulation, these are regulated also. So what regulates the parathyroid gland? Well, it's too early for you, but calcium levels in the blood. That regulates the parathyroid. And what regulates the endocrine pancreas? Glucose. Glucose. That regulates. So these are, although independent of the pituitary, but they have their own negative feedback. Parathyroid by calcium, endocrine pancreas by glucose. The disorders and diseases of endocrine glands are very easy to classify into three groups. The majority are the top. Most of them are functional disorders. Either too much hormone secretion or hypersecretion, or not enough hormones, hyposecretion. These are insufficiency of the gland. Inflammatory disorders are very rare in the endocrine system, and this affects mostly thyroid glands, and relatively rarely also adrenal and endocrine pancreas. Actually, you can circle thyroid gland because I guarantee that this will be the most frequently seen endocrine disease in your practice, in addition to diabetes mellitus. So, the inflammatory diseases are rare, but they affect mostly the thyroid and the endocrine pancreas, because essentially the type 1 diabetes is inflammatory destruction of the insulin-producing cells. Neoplastic diseases are also very rare. This could be either benign or malignant. Mostly these are adenomas, mostly the pituitary, thyroid, and parathyroids in the adrenal glands. And it is adenomas, which are well-defined structures, easy to remove surgically or radiated. Carcinomas are mostly occurring in the thyroid, in the hormones are transmitted via blood through hormones. Hormones transmitted through bloodstream. True, guys. Master gland pituitary regulates all endocrine glands. No,
No.
that's false. Thyroid glands are regulated by calcium. True. Endocrine pancreas is very important for diabetes mellitus. Is also affected by the pituitary gland. False, big false. Hypo and hyposecretion hormones may occur in every endocrine gland. That's true. Hypo and hyposecretion is the most frequent of abnormality. Adenomas are frequent, while carcinomas are rare in the endocrine system. True. Now, this is not in your syllabus, so you can put down the labels that you should know this, because these are the recurring questions for the quizzes and exam. So that misleading could be that what pituitary regulates, and adenomas again are extremely carcinomas are extremely adenomas are not. Any question? Comment on this? Yes, I'm sorry, I told you that we have to go fast. And I want to show that San Diego contingents get qualified before I got there. So, the master gland at the top of the brain, under the brain, but at the top of our head. How big is the pituitary gland? 0.5 gram, 5 milligram. Size of a pea, extremely small, but extremely powerful. So again, most of them comes from Holland, and is the dominant pathophysiology, very expensive food, with a lot of good illustrations. What one? Could you use the X? What X means? What does it refer to? X of who? Who? Apostles. X of the apostles. Apostles. As one of the three apostles who tried to spread Christianity, later became Christianity. It was not for Christianity, Israel, and those are the ones who wrote the Acts of the Apostles. So what we are going to cover here. So first, cover the structure and function. Pituitary, discuss the effect of hyper or hypofunction of the master gland. And review major causes of pituitary hyperfunctions and hypofunction deficiency of hormones, especially the antidiuretic hormone and diabetes insipidus. Please circle diabetes insipidus because, like in a lot of clinical journals, we use the long term. But usually we mention diabetes because that refers to diabetes mellitus. But that's not the only diabetes. There is another diabetes insipidus, which is due to the pituitary malfunction. So this is DI, the other is DN. And rather simple and easily recognizable features of these diseases and apply appropriate diagnostic tests. So here is the quick review, reflection on this. So here is the hypothalamus regulating the pituitary gland, the anterior pituitary and the posterior front and the back of the pituitary gland, all located in this small location under the brain. The And ACTH, the adrenocorticotropic hormone, which affects the adrenal cortex to produce cortical hormones, essential corticoids, mineralocorticoids, which are pro-inflammatory, and glucocorticoids, which are anti-inflammatory. Of course, anterior pituitary releases the follicular stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and prolactin, which regulates breast tissue to produce milk. We are not covering testes and ovary in this case. And the posterior pituitary, the antidiuretic hormone, which regulates water absorption, and oxytocin, the lactation and uterine contraction. And here is the negative feedback, which here is illustrated by pituitary, but essentially relates to every organ, even if it is not regulated by the pituitary. Because even those which are independent of the pituitary regulated either by calcium, parathyroid, or endocrine pancreas by glucose. And this is the real pituitary from autopsy material. It's easily distinguishable the fourth anterior part and the posterior part. So these are releasing corticotropic releasing hormones which stimulate the endocrine glands, in this case the ACTH. And when cortisol level drops, essentially that stimulates more ACTH. So it's a beautiful balance between the target organs, which are the adrenal, thyroid, or testis or follicles, are a really beautiful plus-minus regulatory situation. Again, to reinforce this by other illustration, all these hormones are released in the blood flow and reaching the target organ, which has the feedback affecting the organ functions. Although normally if you stay by regular periodic acid shift or hematoxin, you cannot distinguish with the pituitary which hormone, which cell produces which hormone. If you use immunohistochemistry with certain hormone antibodies, you could pick up some hormones. But the more specific, of course, is electron microscopy. Because here is it that you see that in follicle stimulating hormones the granules are on the surface of one of these glands. ACTH, the vesicles are all over the cells, similar to growth hormone. TSH are very sparsely located on the periphery. So this is all low power electron micrograms, because otherwise pituitary glands from normal histologic training cannot be distinguished. The growth hormone is just self-evident. I'm not going to read all of this in great details. Of course, this affects our growth. Essentially, the release is stimulated by the growth hormone releasing hormone GRH and suppressed by the growth hormone releasing inhibitory hormone, also known as somatostatin, which is produced mostly in the pancreas. This growth hormone is essentially critical because if adenoma is producing excessive growth hormone, those children will be high gigantic, and if it is affecting right after the bones close, the growth essentially cause some other syndrome which we will see in a few minutes. Prolactin is critical because prolactin producing adenomas are the most frequent that you will see in a few minutes. And this is of course secreted mostly during the pregnancy. By the vessel prolactin are regulated, released from the hypothalamus, and is covered by prolactin inhibiting hormone, which is nothing else but dopamine. And this is a critical element that dopamine is the only inhibitor of prolactin. Growth hormone has its anti-inflammatory, inhibitory factor, but there is no anti-prolactin as such. Dopamine, nobody knows why, but dopamine is the only one that inhibits prolactin secretion. Let's stop here because I promise that you will get biology paper. Ladies ladies and gentlemen, let's start to come back in 6 to 7 minutes, okay?